Joining me now to discuss this and more is One Nation MP Barnaby Joyce. Barnaby, great to see you. First of all, your reaction to Kevin Rudd's resignation as ambassador, and who do you think should be in the role next?
Well, it was his decision, wasn't it? It was like the person who fell out of the plane. They said it was entirely his decision to pull the parachute. Well, of course, the other alternative was to bounce on the ground. He was, look, I don't mind Kevin, but this was a ridiculous position. It was untenable, and he should never have been put in that position, and he should have been taken out of that position ages ago. So you just can't get away with saying that. You've got to realise, you think the resources of Australia are strong, and the resources around the President of the United States are immense, and they would have all the briefings in the world. Say, guess what this clown said about you, President? And he would know. He wouldn't have gone into that meeting, into that press conferences, not knowing exactly what Trump had said. And the president, gave him the greatest humiliation you possibly could in front of the world's media. And you can do that when you're the president of the United States. And we have to realise he is the president of the United States. And without the president of the United States, we don't have a defence policy. And we're in a world of trouble with the ascendancy of a totalitarian regime in China. So this had to happen now with Stephen, who's another guy I actually get along very well with. I like Stephen. But, I thought he was off the hook by saying his approach was moronically stupid. And you could sort of maybe have some latitude there, but then he followed it up with saying here's the foreign policy of a moron. So, no, Stephen is going to be in the don't do it. Don't replace him with Stephen. Stephen's a lovely guy, but it's not going to work there either. So Joel's looking pretty good. I'd say Joel is looking pretty good. And Joel's a very, very safe set of hands. And, his son, who was tragically killed in the military, he's got all the credentials of a person, former defence minister. If I was going to the Melbourne Cup field, I'd have a pineapple on Joel to get the job.
Yeah, look, I think that's a very safe bet. And I like Stephen Conroy too as a colleague, and I've enjoyed many debates with him, especially on Paul Murray's program. But having made the comments he did, I think it would be equally untenable to have him in that position. I agree. Look, let's talk about Prime Minister Anthony Albanese yesterday, who announced he was recalling Parliament early to look at new hate speech laws on the ground of race. But the coalition has raised concerns that religious carve-outs could give licence to radical preachers to use interpretations of the Quran and other Islamic texts to espouse hatred of Jews. And in fact, this is exactly what the Sydney hate preacher Wissam Haddad tried to do in his defence to a federal court case brought by the Jewish community last year, which did fail. But Barnaby, what do you think of these new reforms, and do you share these concerns about these carve-outs?
I have concerns that we have brought into that things that are incredibly have great issue in the country, such as firearms legislations for us. We live here, not in Bondi. We're law-abiding farmers. We haven't done anything wrong, and I don't think they'll tolerate us if we started voting for greater regulations on how people live out here. And I think it's very mischievous to put that into the same piece of legislation where there obviously will be a wealth of things we want to support, but you can't support it if you go back home and people say, you've just voted for me to have to hand over my grandparents' firearms, or you've just voted for me to no longer be able to put a foot on you asked me to love this nation, but now I'm not allowed to put a foot on it because I used to go out pig shooting and now I'm not allowed to do it anymore. Apparently it's illegal. So you want me to love this nation, you want me to defend this nation, but you have taken away the mechanism for me to recreate on this nation, and I don't quite work that out, and I can't work that out either. So, we know what the thing is, like Wissam Haddad, like we all know his name. It's so bizarre. We all know his name.
I know. Yeah, sadly, he's infamous now.
We're not allowed to do anything about it. I mean, do you think if he was in Saudi Arabia, let's go to an Islamic country, how long do you reckon he'd last? He'd be gone. He'd be absolutely gone. And, we're playing this stupid game. We know it's in the southwest suburbs of Sydney and in sections of Melbourne. We know it's Islamic hate. We know it's fundamentalist Islam. We know who these people are. We know where it is. Yet we play this stupid game of finding all these other distractions. It's farmers, it's pig shooters, it's, militant Anglicans, and it's Islam, it's BS. Just that's the problem with this. We're still just dancing around the issue when we know exactly what the problem is. When I can walk into the Katingle Hotel and they'll tell me exactly what the problem is, but then we hear this sort of confetti of confusion coming out of Canberra about how they're going to deal with this issue.
Yeah, and it's not just the guns that are the distraction. I mean, I think announcing that they're going to try and ban groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir, good, should have happened a long time ago. But at the same time, they have to mention the neo-Nazis, which I, of all people, will say horrendous. They shouldn't be here. We shouldn't have them. But they weren't responsible for what happened at Bondi. So it just seems like another distraction.
Yes.
Barnaby, yet another poll, this one by Demos AU, shows your party, your new party, One Nation, closing in on the coalition. They're now tied on a 23% primary vote, while Labor's vote has fallen to 29%. I mean, I imagine this would be validation for you and your decision to defect late last year.
Well, people talk about me, and it's not about me. What this is about overwhelmingly is the Australian people making a change in how they vote. I might have changed parties, but the Australian people have made the biggest change, vastly bigger than me, that they want the confetti of confusion removed. They want a more stringent and clear message about issues and things. I'll give you two. One Nation has been talking forever about Islamic fundamentalism and how dangerous it is. And people know about that and they understand that. Other people might try and morph and change and twist now, but One Nation was clear about it. One Nation has been very clear about intermittent power and the absolute swindle, which is the wind turbines and the solar panels, when the cheapest form of power is coal-fired power. And people in other parties, they go, if you say coal-fired power, they go, oh, no, you can't say that because we've got to keep teal seats, and people are over that. They say, mate, I just want cheap power. I'm dealing with the cost of living crisis. I want you to deal straight with me. And One Nation is able to do that. And, and this idea, this sort of conceit, well, it's not sort of, it's exactly conceit. Oh, you'll just be a protest party and a minor vote. I bet you they've got a different attitude when they need preferences. And by the way, that's not your decision to make. This is the Australian people's decision to make as to who's minor parties and who's major parties and who is going to be the government. And when you just say, I'm entitled to this and you're not allowed to have any of my, honey smacks, well, the Australian people, I know Australia pretty well, they'll call you for it. They'll go, no, mate, that's my decision. And, maybe it's you that's going to have to try and work out whether your next job is stacking shelves at Bunnings. Because it's actually my job to determine whether that's the case.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to see many former coalition or Labor politicians stacking shelves at Bunnings, but maybe that's where they do deserve to be. Barnaby Joyce, thank you so much for your time tonight.